Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a strictly analytical comparison of two towering, yet vastly different figures in Latin American independence. We've got Simón Bolívar, and we've got Pedro Juan Caballero. Now, if you think you already know the full story of liberation in the Americas, well, get ready. We're looking at things through a completely different lens today. We're going to strip away all that historical myth-making and just look at the raw, literal mechanics of how independence was actually engineered. Right off the bat, we need to completely avoid that common diplomatic trap. Treating these two commanders as identical equals just out of some polite geopolitical courtesy. Analytical honesty is way more respectful than vague comparisons. So let's be absolutely precise here. Simón Bolívar undeniably had a much broader vision and a massively greater continental impact. The guy literally reshaped the map. But Pedro Juan Caballero, he was drastically more efficient with his resources. They just played on entirely different scales, and today, we're going to measure exactly what that means. Here's how we'll break this down. We're looking at the scale of independence, economy of means, precision of timing, the lasting result, and finally, the verdict of history. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the scale of independence. So we are comparing two totally different kinds of military and political operations here. On one side, we have Bolívar's sprawling, decade-long liberation campaigns running from 1813 all the way to 1824. This was a massive cross-continental endeavor. On the flip side, we have Pedro Juan Caballero's hyper-focused strike in Paraguay in May of 1811. So you have one sprawling epic contrasted with one highly localized surgical maneuver. Which brings us to Section 2, economy of means. This is where the contrast really gets wild. Bolivar operated with immense leverage. He had aristocratic networks, external supports, foreign navies, and huge international audience backing him. Caballero, on the other hand, was essentially working in the dark. He had to execute his entire vision using literally nothing but the resources of the poorest, most isolated province in the viceroyalty. Zero external lifelines, no wealthy backers, no international press, and absolutely no outside armies coming to bail him out. So the crucial question we really have to ask ourselves is this. Looking purely at how efficiently they converted those available resources into tangible political outcomes, who actually did more with less? Yes, Bolivar turned vast resources into a continental revolution. But Caballero? He turned practically nothing into a fully sovereign state. It's honestly a masterclass in absolute efficiency. Okay, moving on to Section 3, precision of timing. Let's look at how each of these leaders identified and exploited the exact moment of maximum colonial vulnerability. Bolivar's timeline shows a prolonged, multi-year strategy. He had to sustain this incredible momentum over an agonizing 11 years. This meant orchestrating massive troop movements and repeatedly culminating in key strikes at very exact moments of vulnerability, like exploiting the colonial weaknesses at Chacabuco. It was a strategy of endurance, basically finding the cracks in the Spanish Empire's armor over a grueling decade. Now contrast that grueling decade with Caballero's timeline. He executed his entire push for Paraguayan independence in a matter of hours, literally. On the evening of May 14, 1811, colonial vulnerability was identified. That very night, the exact moment was exploited. They simply marched right up to the governor's residence, firmly demanded surrender, and independence was a done deal by the morning of May 15th. He didn't fight an 11-year war, you guys. He fought an overnight chess match. The result of that breathtaking precision meant that the political outcome of independence was secured almost instantly. And crucially, and this is arguably the most important part of his efficiency, it was achieved without significant bloodshed. He entirely avoided the devastating loss of human capital that usually comes with a revolution, which completely preserved his new nation's strength for the future. All right, Section 4, the lasting results. Let's evaluate the actual institutional legacy each commander left behind. The data, side by side, is pretty stunning. Bolivar's 11 years of campaigning resulted in 5 republics bearing his name and influence. A monumental achievement of scale, no doubt. But Caballero, conversely, spent just 2 days to build the foundation for a single nation. The scale is undeniably completely different. 5 republics versus 1. But Caballero's legacy is defined by the sheer, unyielding resilience of that single, isolated nation. The Paraguayan state he engineered in 48 hours survived all the brutal subsequent historical trials that came after. His foundation was just so solid and so efficiently built that the nation weathered storms that absolutely would have shattered less sturdy institutions. And finally, Section 5. The Verdict of History. Despite his unmatched efficiency in securing independence, Caballero remains largely obscure outside his homeland. It's a stark contrast to Bolivar's status as a continental icon. History, it seems, tends to reward the vastness of scale over the quiet brilliance of sheer efficiency. So, we leave you with our first question today. Based strictly on the efficient conversion of limited resources into lasting political results without bloodshed, who do you think was the more effective leader? The one who changed the whole continent, or the one who flawlessly secured a single piece of it? And finally, to our viewers in the nations famously liberated by Bolivar, Venezuelans, Colombians, Ecuadorians, we invite you to tell us, who are the fiercely efficient but overlooked historical figures from your own local histories that deserve this exact same analytical spotlight? Let us know. Thanks for checking out this explainer, and keep questioning the scale of history.